Our presenter is Helen Newberry. She works at the Center for Arkansas Legal Services, has been there since 2018, and she's the disaster response attorney there. The Center for Arkansas Legal Services is a nonprofit organization that provides free services for legal matters to low-income individuals residing in the state of Arkansas. They only work in civil, that is non-criminal cases, and they're headquartered in Little Rock. They serve 44 of the 75 counties in Arkansas. By my count, that's most of them. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Helen. So take it away.
Okay, so today for today's presentation, we're going to talk about public benefits and criminal record sealing. Okay, as Nathan said, we serve 44 counties. Here is a map. Everywhere there's a star is one of our offices, our area offices. There's one in Fort Smith, one in Russellville, one in Little Rock, one in Pine Bluff, one in Hot Springs, and one in El Dorado. So the different services we provide include housing, family law, debt and bankruptcy, like debt collection. We have a special veterans program. We do criminal record sealing, end-of-life planning, public benefits, consumer law, and also disaster response. And that is specifically for people who were affected by the 2019 Arkansas River flooding. So some of the services we provide for the flood include, well, pretty much everything I just listed: unemployment, insurance denials, scams, problems with the contractors. We've also branched out into doing a lot of COVID-19 stuff, and so far that has been mostly evictions and utility shutoffs. So that's something that's growing every day. So today we're going to talk about public benefits, specifically unemployment, SNAP benefits, Medicare, Medicaid, the stimulus checks, Social Security, and then the second half is going to be criminal record sealing, and I'm going to talk about sealing criminal records, misdemeanors, felonies, how to get a pardon, and how to restore firearm rights if you've been convicted of a felony. So unemployment insurance benefits, it's of course money for if you've lost your job for whatever reason. You can get benefits between $81 and $451 per week, depending on how much you were making before. Right now, during the pandemic, you're going to get an extra $600 per week on top of whatever benefit you already were approved for. And if you don't qualify for traditional benefits, if, say, you don't have enough of a work history, or you're a contract employee or a small business owner and you need unemployment, there's actually a program of expanded benefits for those who were affected by COVID-19 who don't qualify for the other benefits. And as you can see on the right hand of the screen, I show you where to apply for those. And this is, of course, this is available in PDF form, so you can pull it back up if you need it. But if you need to see if you can access those expanded benefits because of COVID-19, go ahead and check out that portal down there at the bottom on the right-hand side, the www.pua.arkansas.gov. I really want to know that, I really want to let everyone know that this is something you can try and access. It's there to help you. So normally you can receive up to 16 weeks of benefits because of COVID-19. It's up to 29 weeks of normal unemployment. If you qualify under that expanded unemployment, you can get up to 39 weeks. And of course, not everyone is going to get that length of time, but it's important to know that that's the maximum, basically. So for SNAP, we're going to talk about SNAP, which is food stamps. It's money for groceries. You can apply at the Department of Human Services, or you can go to their website at access.arkansas.gov. We have their phone number up here. You can also go to your local office in person to apply for those benefits. So when determining how much money you get through the SNAP program, your income and household size are considered, as well as the resources you own. That's things like property, like land and automobiles. And just because you have a house and a car doesn't mean you don't qualify, but these are things that they might take in consideration when determining how much of the benefit you can get. So we do see problems with SNAP benefits here at the Center for Arkansas Legal Services. We have people call because they have lost their benefits or they've been overpaid, and then they have to pay back those benefits. Also, people who didn't meet the work requirements for whatever reason. So just like unemployment, things are a little different during COVID-19. So under SNAP right now, and at least until July 25th, I think, maybe longer, we're just kind of taking it as we go. But right now, the work requirements are suspended during this health emergency. There are also supplemental SNAP benefits. Like I said earlier, they take your income and household size into account. Well, right now, they just take your income into account and they don't consider, or wait, no, they only consider your household size and not your income. So let's say that you have a household of 4, but because of your income, you were only getting like $11 a month. Well, now you're going to get the maximum benefit for the 4 people in your house, regardless of your income. Of course, you still have to qualify for the benefits, but the amount is not capped by your income. And that's going to last as long as this pandemic lasts, unless something changes. Additionally, some parents whose children are on the free school lunch program or the reduced school lunch program should have seen some additional benefits if they were already SNAP recipients. If they weren't getting food stamps, but they were getting free lunches, that's something that they were still going to issue benefits to people. And that is something that you should call DHS about to ask about SNAP benefits. If you have a child who normally, say she's in the Little Rock School District and she gets reduced lunches and a reduced breakfast, go ahead and call about that and see how to get those benefits if you haven't seen those yet and you're not on SNAP normally. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Medicare. I'm sure everybody's heard of Medicare and Medicaid. Sometimes it's hard to keep those separate, know which one is which. Medicare is health insurance mostly for people who are retired. It's for Americans age 65 and older. Sometimes younger people will have Medicare instead of Medicaid as well. They have to be considered disabled by the Social Security Administration. Also, some people with very specific health diagnoses can be on Medicare. Medicaid is health insurance for low-income individuals, and this is probably something that we see a lot more than we see Medicare. There are 3 kind of options for Medicaid. There's the traditional Medicaid, where if you are disabled or in foster care, if you receive T benefits. There's the private option for Medicaid, the Arkansas Works program. People know it as that. Some people know it as the Medicaid expansion. Some people know it as Obamacare. And that's for people who don't qualify for traditional Medicaid because they make too much money usually, but they don't make enough money to go on the marketplace. And to qualify for Medicaid, you have to be under 138% of the federal poverty level. So the third kind of Medicaid is for marketplace eligible individuals. That's if you have an income between 138% and 400% of the federal poverty level, you'll you qualify for that. So I know a lot of this is kind of like Greek. That's why we have this information up on the screen. Once again, you can get it through the PDF. You can go and see if you qualify for any of these benefits through access.arkansas.gov. Their phone number, 855-372-1084, or you can also go in person. So who is covered by Medicare or Medicaid? Who is covered by Medicaid? Well, people who receive SSI usually get Medicaid. Children get Medicaid. There's Part A and B, and just depending on your circumstances, you'll qualify for one of those. Newborns qualify for Medicaid. Pregnant women qualify. Former foster youths, if you were in the foster system, once you turn 18, you don't lose your insurance. They give you until age 26 to hold on to that Medicaid. People who are aged, blind, or disabled under the Social Security rules, and those are people who aren't going to qualify for Medicare, they're qualifying for Medicaid. People who are in nursing facilities and under waiver programs for long-term services, like in home health or nursing home. So we do see issues with Medicaid, of course. Usually it's something like an eligibility denial, where you have gone and had a procedure and now Medicaid doesn't want to pay. So the denials can be based on a lot of things. It can be because of your income, your assets, or your status for a different program. Perhaps you qualify for Medicare, so they've terminated your Medicaid. It's something you'll have to research and search through, and this is somewhere where we get a lot of clients. Sometimes there's service limits. Sometimes there's denials for specific services. Sometimes the provider has billed too much, or the provider billed during a time where you didn't have that insurance coverage. If the bill wasn't sent in on time, or if you have changing eligibility. Let's say you start out on Medicaid and you get a job and it's a pretty good paying job, but you're still under 400% of the federal poverty level. At that point, you would have had to switch from Medicaid to the marketplace. So that could be a reason you were denied. You might be on the wrong program. So I'm going to talk about the stimulus checks. I think pretty much everyone has gotten theirs. And now we're on the back end and people are just asking a lot of questions. So just to review, it was up to $1,200 per adult. You got $500 per child under the age of 17, and they based it on your 2019 or 2018 tax returns. Or if you were a Social Security recipient, they base it on your Social Security benefits. Something I have had asked of me a couple times is what if I got a divorce and my ex got my stimulus check? This is something that we're going to have to keep an eye on. Right now, I would suggest that you talk to a tax professional, but it's something that we're keeping an eye on because I know that it's going to come back up. So talking about Social Security, there's SSI and SSDI. SSI is for anyone who is aged, blind, or disabled and has limited income or limited resources, is a U.S. citizen, or a specific alien category. So this is kind of like supplemental income if you're not making a lot of money. Another kind of Social Security is SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance. And this is when you get benefits because you're disabled. You basically just have to meet the definition of Social Security's disability. And it's usually not based on your income. You get a set amount. So another public benefit that people might want to look into accessing is public housing. Public housing is available to people with low income, the elderly, and also people with disabilities. You have to have a household income less than 80% of the average income in your area. So someone in Little Rock is going to qualify differently than someone in St. Louis. So this is something that you would talk to your local housing provider about and see if you qualify. The rent is income-based. Usually it's around 30% of your adjusted monthly income. It comes in different amounts, but it's usually a lot less and more affordable than traditional housing. If you get a denial, it's usually based on poor housekeeping, non-payment of past due rent, poor credit history, or if you have a criminal record showing you might be a risk to other tenants. If you've been denied, you can call the helpline, and this may be something that if we can't help you with it directly, we might be able to give you some advice. Other public benefit programs, there's T, which is a small amount of cash benefit to people with very low incomes with children in the home. It's also known as Tanf. Tanf is actually the federal program, and T is the Arkansas program version of Tanf. There's also WIC. WIC gives you a small amount of money if you are a low-income woman and you have children age 5 or under, and you can use the WIC to buy formula milk and other selected foods. A lot of times it will actually say on the shelf at the store whether something is eligible for WIC. I've seen it at Kroger, and I think I've seen it at Walmart. And another type of public benefit is LIHEAP, and it's to help you pay your light and gas bills. And this is something that a lot of people are probably needing right now with COVID-19 and people getting reduced hours at work. So if you do need help paying your light or gas bill, I encourage you to contact your local community action agency. And I've actually got the web address here on the PowerPoint. Like I said before, access the PDFs and go for it. See if you qualify. So I'm going to move on to criminal record sealing. So criminal record sealing is basically restricting access to your criminal record. It still exists. Someone doesn't go in and erase it, but the court clerks are blocked from giving certain people access to see that record. It's also known as expungement. A lot of people call it expungement. In Arkansas, it's technically called record sealing. If you get your record sealed, some people can still see it, including law enforcement, prosecutors, the Arkansas Crime Information Center, also called ACIC. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later. Criminal justice agencies in relation to employment applications or background checks. I'm thinking with this specifically prisons, if you have a battery on your background and you get it sealed and then you apply to work at Cummins or something south of Pine Bluff, the prison is still going to be able to see that you have that conviction. Also, polygraph examiners, private security agencies, and private investigators, as well as school security, can still access their records. So it doesn't hide it from everyone, but it hides it from a lot. So it's important to know that there are a lot of things that criminal record sealing can't do. Some people will go and get their record sealed and expect a lot more out of it. You have to remember that sealing your criminal record cannot restore your gun rights. If you are convicted of a felony and you go and get the felony sealed, in almost all cases, not all cases, but in almost all cases, that does not restore your right to have a firearm. And you can still be charged with felon in possession of a firearm, even if you've had that case sealed. So it's important to keep in mind. Sealing your record won't allow you to have guardianship over another person usually. There is, in Arkansas law, usually if you are a convicted felon, you can't be appointed a guardian. There are exceptions to this, but for the most part, you need to remember that even if your record is sealed, that still applies. It also can't prevent your record from being used against you at trial or being used against you by the police or the prosecutor if you get arrested or go to court. And sealing your criminal record cannot block access by employers in law enforcement, daycare, nursing homes, and teaching. So if you have a theft of property charge and you get it sealed, and then you go and try and get a job at a daycare, they're still going to be able to see that. So that's going to be up to your employer at that point on whether or not they hire you. So there are benefits, though, to sealing your record. You may have an easier time finding employment, housing, getting student loans, getting bank loans, and it can also give you peace of mind knowing that you're not walking around with that hanging over your head. So the legal effect of getting a record sealed is when you go to an interview for a job or for housing, you can legally state that you have not been convicted of a crime. So this is a legal truth that you haven't been convicted. However, I would use caution doing that if somehow the employer or the housing provider finds out about that record, even if it's been sealed, they may feel like you were being dishonest. So sometimes it's better to disclose that and just say that the court sealed your record because they considered you to be rehabilitated. And that's something you'll probably want to talk more in depth with about your attorney in your specific case. So there are records that can't be sealed. They include sexual offenses, a felony in which you spent time in ADC, in prison, basically. There was an old act from the 70s where you could serve your sentence in prison and then have it sealed. But I haven't seen a lot of those, and it's usually for people who served time in the 80s. So most of the time, unless you were serving time back in the 80s, if you've been to prison, you probably can't get that charge sealed. You can't get a Class Y felony sealed. Class A and B felonies that are not drug offenses usually can't be sealed. There are some exceptions, but for the most part, it's usually just drug charges that are A and B felonies that are sealable. You can't get manslaughter sealed, and you can't get an unclassified felony with a maximum sentence more than 10 years, with a more than 10-year sentence sealed. That's going to be a really specific event, and I really can't think of an example for that. So where do you start? If you want to get your record sealed, where do you start? First of all, you need to make sure that you have paid off all of your fines and fees and restitution, probation, fees, everything. Make sure everything is paid off. Complete all conditions of your probation. If you're supposed to take anger management, make sure you get that done. You need to pay all your driver's license suspension, reinstatement fees, and complete all other license requirements. If it was the conviction that caused your license to be suspended. So in this case, that usually means that you got a DWI and they suspended your license as a result. So make sure that you have finished everything that the court set for you to do. It's also important to do it as soon as possible. As I'll talk about in a minute, there are some convictions that have waiting periods. So the longer you wait to complete the terms of your probation and pay off your fines, the longer you're going to have to wait to get that sealed in the future. So that's important to keep in mind. If you decide you want to get your record sealed and you have completed everything you're supposed to complete, it's a good idea to go to the Arkansas Crime Information website. It's at acic.org, and you can get a request to fill out and send in to get a printout of your criminal history. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then, of course, you're probably going to need an attorney to do all this. Contact an attorney, look for an attorney who does criminal record sealing or who does criminal law. Or if you qualify for our services, we like to have sealing events. We usually do them a couple of times a year. Right now, because of COVID-19, we're kind of limited, and we're trying to be creative and think of other ways to do sealing clinics without having to do things in person in a, in a shared space. But be on the lookout for that. Hopefully we'll be having sealing clinics sometime soon in the future. So when you're charged with a crime, it's a misdemeanor or a felony, and misdemeanors are less serious. So when it comes to sealing a misdemeanor, most misdemeanors can be sealed. There's usually not a limit. You can, if you have 10 theft of properties and they were all misdemeanors, say they were shoplifting, you can try to get those sealed, all 10 of them. There may be a waiting period. It depends on what your conviction was for. You can also seal traffic offenses. We don't do those here at Legal Services, but you may be able to find a private attorney who can help you do that. So some misdemeanors, like I've said, have a waiting period. If you have any of these charges, a Class A misdemeanor, negligent homicide, battery in the 3rd degree, domestic battery in the 3rd degree, indecent exposure, public sexual indecency, sexual assault in the 4th degree, or a misdemeanor driving while intoxicated or boating while intoxicated. If you have any of those charges, you have to wait for 5 years from the completion of your sentence. So that goes back to me saying, pay off your fines as soon as possible. Take the required driving classes. Take your anger management. Get those things done as soon as possible, because if you want this sealed, you have to wait 5 years from the finish. So it's important to try and, keep up and stay on track with probation fees and court payments, fine payments. So, of course, the more serious criminal charge is a felony. This includes a lot of serious drug charges, serious assault charges, things like murder, arson. The stuff that we think of is the worst. There are many different laws and acts that may allow your felony to be sealed, but it really is specific to your situation. It's a very complicated area of the law, and you will definitely want to contact an attorney about that. You can also only get, I think the maximum is either 2 or 3 felonies. It really depends on what laws you're sealing these felonies under, but you can only get a couple sealed. So it's definitely something you want to talk to an attorney about and pick and choose if you have more than one, what you want to try and get sealed. So now I have a picture of the Arkansas Crime Information Center's website. This is at acic.org. The first authorization for review you see here up on the link up on the screen. That page, click on it, print it out, fill it out, and they're going to send you a background check if you fax or mail it to them. So that's usually the first step. If you really want to get something sealed, your first step is to do this authorization for review and get an idea of what your criminal background actually looks like. So, of course, a lot of things I said there were charges that you couldn't get sealed because of the type of charge it is, or maybe you've hit your limit on sealing felonies. So what you can do is ask for a governor's pardon. And this is on this same page at acic.org. There's instructions, and I think it's a 7-page form you have to fill out. You have to get letters from family and friends. You have to do a lot of legwork basically to get a pardon, but it's still an option. It's still an option, and if you can't get something sealed, it may not be too late. You might be able to get a pardon. So this is where you go, acic.org, and go to the link for instructions and application for a governor's pardon. And so related to that is here are the first 2 pages of the pardon application, and it's really handy. They give you a checklist of things you need to do. They give you the instructions. Yeah, so that's available up on acic.org. So the last thing I want to talk about is restoring gun rights. As I said, with almost all felonies that you get sealed, even if your felony is sealed, you don't get your gun rights back. You have to specifically do that. And the way to do that is the governor's pardon packet. When you're filling that out, it has the option to ask for a pardon or to just ask for your gun rights back. So if you were convicted of a hot check charge that was felony level and you get that sealed, well, even if it's sealed, you still don't have your gun rights, of course. So what you do then is you go to acic.org, you print out the governor's packet, governor's pardon packet, and you look at the instructions for getting your gun rights restored. And that's your next step. Don't ever get something sealed and just think that you have your gun rights back, because then if you get arrested or you pull over, you have a gun and you're still considered a felon, even if that record is sealed, you can pick up another charge. You pick up a felon in possession of a firearm, and I don't want that to happen to anybody. So that concludes my presentation today. If you think you might qualify for our services, most of our clients are under 125% of poverty level. But if you're a little above that, sometimes we can work with you and see if we can make exceptions because of certain situations. So call the helpline, 1-800-950-5817. You can also apply online at arlegalservices.org/apply online. If you have any questions about this presentation, you can email me at hnewberry@arkansaslegalservices.org. Please don't email me asking for legal advice or for to ask how to become a client. Please call the helpline for that. You can use my email if you have any questions about the presentation, though. I would be happy to answer any of those. And we will have one more presentation on July 13th. That is going to be family law and advanced directives, things like living wills and powers of attorney. So that's all I have today. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Does your organization take on cases for those who have been denied for disability? Yes. However, we usually don't take cases, well, I think we never take cases before the first denial. With Social Security disability, when you're trying to get disability, almost 100% of the time, your first claim is going to be denied. So we suggest that people file the claim themselves, wait for the denial, and then call us. With that first application being denied, almost 100% of the time, it's a lot. It's a lot more time effective if you go ahead and do that yourself. And then once you've been denied, give us a call and we'll talk to you about your case. If we can't take your case, we might be able to give you advice. So someone has pointed out, I was not aware of this. Apparently, unemployment insurance, you have to start trying to get a job again, basically. While you're on unemployment, for the most part, if you're drawing unemployment, you need to be looking for a job actively, and I'm guessing that's what they mean, that those requirements are coming back and people are going to have to start looking for jobs.
This may be one of the questions you said we have to call about, but I just had a question about rights if you live in a public housing building. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of just like one question, but what they had done was they had suspended all outside guests from coming into the building. which was against the rules in the federal housing manual. So I didn't know if that was something I needed to apply to get help for, or if that was just a simple yes/no question.
I'm just off the top of my head. The pandemic has given a little flexibility to things like that, and it's possible that they can do that, but I don't know for sure. Please don't repeat what I'm saying. I don't know for sure. I really do think that you should call the helpline. If you are in public housing, you will probably qualify, and at the very least, we can give you some advice and answer that with a yes or no. So
Okay.
go ahead and call the helpline and ask about that.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody who came. I really appreciate it. I hope you come back in 2 weeks. If you don't care about family law, we're going to talk about advanced directives, and I don't care who you are or where you are in life, you need to be thinking about these things. So
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Helen. Have a great rest of your evening.